So, with the exception of the release date, which was recently announced to be the 26th of May this year for PC, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4, we haven't had any big reveals of information in a long time. There were a few small updates and pieces of interesting information, but I don't want to be bombarding you guys with tiny update videos and be showing up in your notifications anytime Jason sneezes or a female counselor's butt gets bigger. If a lot of you wouldn't mind seeing videos covering these smaller updates, there are a couple things that would be worth covering. So let me know in the comments of this video if you're all interested in even more details regarding this game. Now, with all of that being said, as you all can tell by the title of this video, all of the stats of the playable Jasons were recently revealed to us. At launch, there are 7 playable Jasons. Part 2 Jason, Part 3 Jason, Part 6, 7, 8, and 9 Jasons, as well as the Tom Savini Jason, which was available to purchase as bonus content for a short period of time. Now, before we get into it, I'd just like to show you guys where I'm getting this information, and it is from the official Friday the 13th The Game forums and the official account of Wes Keltner, who is the founder of Gun Media, the team that's working with Ilphonic to bring us this game. Now, in Wes's post, he goes over every single Jason that's available at the launch of the game and breaks down each particular one's strengths and weaknesses. As per usual, I'm not just going to be sitting here and showing you and reading to you the post that Wes made, but I wanted to make sure you all had a reference for where this information was coming from so you could know it was legit. We're simply going to be going through each Jason, listing their particular attributes, and discussing what those attributes mean for that Jason and his playstyle. Let's get into it. First up, we have Part 2 Jason. This Jason was one of the 3 playable Jasons from the beta, and after playing as all of them, this one was my favorite. He felt the quickest, and it seemed like with him, that once you made up your mind on killing a particular counselor, they were not going to escape you. Feel free to pause the images and check out the grab kills section for each Jason and use your imagination with the small images provided before I get into breaking down their stats. So, from the Part 2 Jason selection image, we can gather his strengths and weaknesses. Part 2 Jason's 3 strengths are his ability to run, his ability to start with more traps than other Jasons. It's said that he actually starts with 6 traps, which sounds like a lot, and a faster cooldown on his morph ability. These strengths are of course balanced out by his weaknesses, which are a slower cooldown on his shift ability, a lower defense than other Jasons, which means he's got a lower pool of hit points as well as a lower chance to block attacks, and it's also said that he's very slow in the water, which has a role in the levels, especially those with a boat escape. I still think, however, that upon unlocking this Jason, he will easily be one of my go-tos. He felt significantly better than Part 3 and Part 7 Jason in the beta, though it's unclear how the low hit points will affect him since we didn't know how this mechanic worked in the beta. On to Part 3 Jason, who seems like the most well-rounded one of the bunch. He may not be the coolest looking Jason out of all the playable ones, but he's available right from the start, and probably the best choice for new players before they determine what their Jason playstyle is. Like Part 2 Jason, this one can run, which seems like a really important strength, given that in the beta, Part 7 Jason was the easiest to go up against, and that's because he could not run, so he was easy to get away from. Players quickly gravitated towards Part 3 or Part 2 Jason, and it seems like this can be attributed to the fact that they could run. So hopefully, the Jasons that can't run have a lot more to offer now, and are worth choosing, as a lot of them look very, very cool. Part 3 Jason also has increased weapon strength, which means attacks with his axe will deal more damage to counselors. On top of this, as a strength, he has better grip strength, which makes it more difficult for counselors to break free from his grasp once he grabs them. So on top of his ability to run, his attacks do more damage and his grabs are more effective. He's got a great set of strengths, and while he does have his weaknesses, they don't seem too bad to cope with. He's got a lower stun resistance, which means he gets stunned more frequently. His sense doesn't last as long once it's activated, but this isn't a huge deal because he already had the ability to sense out where counselors are. And probably worst of all is he has a weakness to his stock ability, so it doesn't last as long as a Jason who doesn't have a weakness to this ability. Given that stock currently seems like it'll be a really powerful ability, this is probably Part 3 Jason's biggest weakness, though we don't yet know how this ability is going to change gameplay. And since this is one of the faster Jasons, maybe it's not too bad that his stock doesn't last as long. So now we skip over Part 4 and 5 Jason, as they're not included with this game at launch, and land on Part 6 Jason. Part 6 Jason has got a unique ability in being the only playable Jason to start with throwing knives. While all Jasons can use throwing knives, they have to rely on finding them throughout the map. Part 6 Jason doesn't have to worry about this, and will have this ranged attack available right from the beginning. On top of starting with throwing knives, His sense ability also lasts longer than standard, and his shift ability cools down quicker. Not really the greatest set of strengths, but it seems like a nice touch to have him start out with the throwing weapons in inventory, even though we don't yet know whether or not it'll be easy or difficult to find them throughout the match. Part 6 Jason does come with some pretty powerful weaknesses. He's got low defense, meaning he's got lower hit points and a lower chance to block attacks. He can't run, though this is somewhat balanced out by the fact that he starts with throwing knives ready. And probably worst of all is that his morph ability has a longer cooldown than other Jasons. Morph is really key for Jason to be controlling key points of the map while also effectively killing off counselors, so a slower cooldown on this ability is a big hit. Now we arrive at Part 7 Jason, which is easily one of the coolest looking Jasons, right next to the Tom Savini one, though he kinda sucked to play as in the beta. He felt pretty weak or underpowered when compared to Part 2 or 3 Jason. Anyway, here are his strengths. First up is his sensibility. It's got a faster cooldown, which is pretty helpful in detecting where counselors are frequently. Sense is a necessary crutch in being an effective player as Jason, so it is a good strength to have. He's got increased water speed, which doesn't seem too significant, but he is very, very fast in the water. Like, impressively fast. And even at Higgins Haven, which didn't see many counselors in the water, it felt great to have this strength when water gameplay was a thing. And it was also mentioned in the post that his water speed is slightly faster than the boat, which can come into play on the other maps. And on top of this, he's got increased grip strength, which, as you all know, makes it more difficult for counselors to break free from his grasp. However, this Jason does have a strong set of weaknesses. He can't run. He's got a lesser amount of traps than standard. It's said that he starts with 2, so I'm assuming that the other Jasons actually all start with 4 unless they have a particular strength or weakness to it. And his shift ability has a slower cooldown. I don't mean to keep referencing the beta, as I know things could have changed a decent bit as far as Jason's speeds go, but it seems like most players started off by choosing this Jason since he looked so cool, and then never playing as him again after being so frustrated that he couldn't run and catch up to counselors. Though now with traps and throwing knives available, Jasons without the ability to run are probably much more viable options. Next up, we have Part 8 Jason, who looks very similar to Part 3 and Part 6 Jasons. Like Part 7 Jason, this one's got increased water speed, but on top of that, he's actually got 2 really great strengths. He's got increased destruction, meaning that he can break down doors and break through walls in a lower amount of hits. This may not seem like a big deal, but when playing as Jasons without this strength, it always felt like it took way too long to break down doors or walls, so hopefully it feels less annoying to do that as a Jason with this strength. On top of the increased destruction, he's also got a longer lasting stock ability. It's not mentioned exactly how much longer his stock ability lasts, but this is a really powerful strength and shouldn't be something that gets brushed off. I think that stock is going to be one of the more fun abilities to use as Jason when playing the game against counselors. And it doesn't seem like Part 8 Jason has too bad a set of weaknesses. His sensibility does not last as long. He hasn't got the ability to run, though stock probably makes up for this later in the game. And he's got a lower grip strength, meaning counselors can break free from his grasp quicker. Not a huge deal once he reaches rage. It seems like this Jason is catered towards being weaker in the beginning of the match, but much more of a threat later in the match when rage and stock are available. Now onto the ugliest Jason of them all. Part 9, Hideous Jason. This Jason seems to have some pretty mediocre strengths along with pretty mediocre weaknesses. His strengths include a faster cooldown on his shift ability, he's got a lower chance of being stunned than other Jasons, and like Part 8 Jason, his stock lasts longer than usual. This Jason's weaknesses are actually well balanced out by his strengths. While he can't run, shift really helps a Jason close the gap when chasing a counselor. He's got lower hit points than other Jasons, which isn't so bad considering his lower chance of being stunned, and a lower amount of traps starting with only 2, though his ability to stay in stock longer allows this Jason himself to be the trap. So while he's just got kind of blah strengths and blah weaknesses, they balance themselves out very well. Now we're on to the final Jason, the one that most people are most excited to play. This Jason was only available for purchase as bonus content for a short amount of time, and can no longer be purchased as a playable Jason if you missed the window. So I really don't mean to rub this in, but I am really excited that I made it in time. That's for 2 reasons. While he doesn't look like any Jason from the movies, he looks really fucking cool. Excuse my language. And the next best piece, his weapon is a pitchfork. I was desperately hoping that I would get to play as a Jason using a pitchfork as a weapon, and that has been answered. Anyway, let's get into his strengths and weaknesses. He's got a faster cooldown on his shift. Nice. Increased weapon strength, which is a great addition because I can't wait to poke people with the pitchfork, even though in the beta grabbing seemed to be more effective than attacking with your weapon. And an ability that I'm excited to try, which is increased destruction, which helps him again break down doors and walls quicker. I'm also going to go ahead and throw in one final strength, and that is, look at him. Look how cool he looks. And of course, his strengths come balanced with some weaknesses. He's got lower water speed, which doesn't seem like too big of a downfall, though I'm sure it will be annoying at particular points in time. He can't run, which again is a very annoying weakness, but he's got a faster cooldown on shift, which helps close the gap. And maybe with the pitchfork, he's got an extended range over other Jasons who have like axes and machetes. And finally, he's got lower grip strength than other Jasons, which seems to be balanced out by the fact that he's got increased weapon strength, so maybe grabbing isn't what you'll go for as this Jason. So, that's it for the stat reveal of all 7 playable Jasons at launch. I think I made it quite clear which one I'm most excited for, even if I don't think it's going to be the best playable Jason of the bunch. But what do you guys think? Of the 7 Jasons, which are your favorite? Which one in particular is your absolute favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, be sure to like the video and subscribe for future content, including daily uploads once the game is released. I'd like to give a quick thank you to all the support recently, as you've all helped this channel get to over 4,000 subscribers, which I know to a lot of you doesn't seem like a lot, but it is. I really hope a lot of you found this information to be useful, but until next time guys, thank you for watching the video. Oh, not bad, my first complete round as Jason took everyone out.
Proud of you.